driven by the amount of effort, the amount of cost, and if you're inventing a whole new technology, gosh, you can imagine there's going to be some cost involved.
Absolutely. Hello, Nick.
Hey, Joris.
So when we speak with clients, especially before we work with them, they have expectations about what they want from us, right? And can you maybe take me through one of the client expectations that you often come across?
Yeah, that's a good topic to discuss, and actually there isn't just usually one thing. There's three things. What I call the holy trinity of expectations, and that of course is quality, right? Yeah. You come to a top firm to do a quality product. Cost is probably the big one, and then timelines, right? Those are the three main factors, the three main client expectations that we have to meet.
So you're mentioning cost there.
What's the big one?
Exactly. People have to do fundraising,
sure,
or get the money from somewhere. So what's a reasonable cost to assume for a first kick at the can?
Well, and so here at Starfish we do medical device design, and that's everything from tongue depressors to MRI machines, right? So you can imagine the cost deltas between those two different ends of that development spectrum. There's going to be huge differences there, right? But for your average, and it also depends on how far along the client is. So, for example, if a client comes to us with a cocktail napkin sketch, hey, I want this thing made. That's a lot of deep digging. The other end of that is if a client comes to us, and we'll just use diagnostics as an example. Sure. They've got a validated LDT, it's out in the wild, lab developed test, pardon me. Yeah. And all they need to do is transfer it to say something like, an ELISA kit, and I'm going to transfer it to a lateral flow device. And that can be, actually, depending on the complexity, fairly easily done, a couple $100,000, and you can get that converted using a competent design house.
Yeah, and I think in this case, you can imagine that there's a lot of parts of this design that can be leveraged that already pre-existing.
Absolutely.
So it's really about leveraging off-the-shelf parts, leveraging pre-existing parts that drive down that cost. Yeah. So from my perspective, I often, we sometimes do this type of work, but we very often deal with tests or principles that do not yet exist. Yes. And I think especially in that case, that drives up the cost because you need a larger team. There's a larger technical uncertainty that needs to be managed. And then, in that case, we often deal with, let's say, $1 million to get from a concept to like a working prototype, or it can even be multiple $1 million depending on how complex that piece of equipment is.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can see where the cost is certainly going to be driven by the amount of effort, the amount of cost, and if you're inventing a whole new technology, gosh, you can imagine there's going to be some cost involved.
Absolutely, and I think then down the line, something to consider is that there is also clinical trials, clinical validation studies that also drive up costs. So definitely a big factor in that holy trinity that you discussed. Yes. That we often come across. Well, thank you so much for sharing it with me.